Oh, I had a delay there. Even StreamYard struggling this morning, Kirk.
It's those temperatures. They're clogging up the airwaves.
We have snow flying right now. Temperatures are plummeting.
I don't know how well the internet works in negative 17 degrees, but you'd think somehow that has an effect. Maybe not.
Is that where you're at right now? You're minus 17?
So my phone just said, and I officially decided, I said, I'm not going outside in that crap and trying to do a quality session today. So I am emotionally committed to the treadmill.
Nice. Well, I'm sure everyone's sick of hearing about how sick our household has been, but I just want to run down our rap sheet for you, Kirk, because it's getting almost comedic at this point.
I think you should. I think this will make a lot of people feel better about their mess of a life recently because everybody's been sick.
And that's the thing. Everyone I talk to has this echoed back at me. Everyone's dealing with it.
Yeah.
So December 25th, I got the norovirus and expelled everything from my body. Just prior to that, though, Lisa had the regular flu. So then after that, Ayla got the flu. And then Braden got the flu. And those might have been switched.
Okay.
And then Lisa got strep. And then Mira got... Braden and Ayla got norovirus. And then Lisa got strep. And then Mira got norovirus. And then Braden and Mira got strep, and then I got strep, and then I got the regular flu, and now I have pink eye.
You do? Get close to the camera. Can I see this pink eye of yours?
I don't know. I'm gonna try to get up there. I've cleaned everything out in eye drops, so it'll probably only be red.
Okay. Your eyes are below the camera. I just see your forehead. Oh, I see it. Okay, yeah.
So I don't know if I've ever had pink eye in my life. And
how you get it is sort of a gross thought.
Well, that's one
theory.
The most famous way of getting conjunctivitis is through poo particles, but there's several types of pink eye.
There is
viral pink eye. There's bacterial pink eye. Anyway, I'm just going to go with
poo pink eye.
I'm a filthy animal.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're on the right side of the earth now. And I just honestly, selfishly, it makes me so happy that you've been sick because it makes me feel so much better about my bouts over the years where I've can't record or I have something. And not that I want you suffering, but I feel like you just even the score in a month.
Yeah. It's due. I've been sick more since the 25th of December than the previous 3 years combined. Mm-hmm. And if you take out Corona, I've been sick more than the previous 6 years combined.
Take out Corona?
Yeah. I've had COVID twice. So if you take that out, these three or four back-to-back things are more than the previous 6 years combined.
You know what I think? I think distance runners are the sickest group of people I know.
Yeah, probably.
No, I'm being serious.
Wrestlers, distance runners and wrestlers.
Wrestlers because they're all handsy with each other, right? They're real close contact.
Yep.
And I just think running is this health pursuit in the public eyes. No. Running forces you to get 5 hours of sleep a night because you have a life and have to train in the morning. Running forces your immune system to be run down to crap because of the training and the lack of sleep for a lot. And I think that we actually put ourselves in way more of a hole. You want to know who doesn't get sick? Like your Aunt Betty, who's 55 and hasn't worked out a day in her life. She gets sick once every 7 years. You want to know who gets sick all the time? Everybody listening to this. Running is good for you in some ways, and training hard beats you down and you get sick in other ways. Sickest group of people I know is runners.
I think that for pure health, I would be a power walker.
I think for pure health, you strength train only and you walk your cardio and you will be illness-wise, you will be much less likely to get sick.
Yeah. I would lift for aesthetics and power walk. And I think that would be the ultimate way to stay healthy. Yeah, probably cold water, open water swimming.
Oh, why that?
It's very good for your entire body.
Give me some science there.
I think they're proven to have the most elasticity in their skin late into life. It stops the dermal aging process as well as anything that science has ever come up with.
And for a man who cares about his skin, that would really align with your belief system.
Is that me?
No, I'm joking. That was Doug. That was
You took me
left
back. I
field.
didn't know. I read something the other day. It was in a thread somewhere. Someone said they went to go get Botox done or whatever skin treatment du jour, and they asked their doctor. They're 39, and she said, "How young will this make me look?" He said, "It's going to make you look like all the other 39-year-olds who get this done." And I thought that was a really good representation of what medical procedures do to your skin. But open water swimmers, I think, are probably the youngest looking people for their age on the planet.
Guess I haven't thought about that.
Yeah. So that's my
Botox
little
is
skincare
preventative.
piece.
That's what if they really want to pitch it to you, right? If I can't make a wrinkle in my face, that will prevent future wrinkles, Brakken. Botox is preventative medicine.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm not going down this rabbit hole. I just am
Let's
comparing
not
it to
touch-
open water, cold water in particular, swimming.
Yeah, there's a few topics we don't touch on with intent, and let's leave Botox on that list.
Excellent.
All right. So we had two things to start this episode. One, this weekend's racing events entirely decided what we want to talk about today, at least in my eyes. And so we'll get to that in a moment. And then two, and I know I've said this before on the podcast, and you have as well. I've gotten the highest volume of Please More 500 episodes of learning or takeaways like we did last week. It's in the dozens, I feel like, because I have touch points with athletes every week. And we communicate a lot, and they've all said, by the way, keep doing that. And so I want the opportunity this week, if you will grant me, to go through past guest interviews, and I come up with a list for our long run episode this week. We won't have a guest again. I think we roll with this right now, and it excites me to go comb through it myself and then see what grabbed my attention.
Okay.
Are you cool with that?
I am.
Listeners, are you cool with that?
There's that joke that we have on Race Brain that a lot of people are asking, which means you just yourself want to say it.
Or like one person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it just gives you permission to say it if you say that other people have asked. But you're right. This is one of those where
if you want me to read them, I'll read them to you.
No, I've received a fair amount. And right before we got on, I said, this is one of those where I've got more messages about this episode than anything in recent memory. So let's roll with it. And I believe next week we already have an interview scheduled, correct?
We do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's roll with that. And then let's talk about today's topic, which is how we think about racing, but more specifically, given the time of year, how we think about early season racing, like the openers of the year, right? And this weekend blew my mind and got me jacked up. Did you follow along with the races this weekend? Why don't you tell the people what happened, or do I need to do that?
I'll just give a brief intro, and that is that upside of having a sick household is you get to watch whatever you want to watch.
Yeah.
So I watched everything, and I watched it live, which was fantastic. And it was good coverage. So we had the Milrose Games this weekend, and I don't know how, are we spoiling? Are we doing spoilers?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we're spoiling.
All right. So they were great races start to finish, but in particular, the U.S. record was set in the indoor mile. This is an indoor meet, so it's all indoor, but indoor mile, indoor 3K, and indoor 800 meters. And en route to doing that, the world record was set in two of those by, of course, U.S. athletes. And so at least on the men's side, it was a stunning display of middle distance running. And they were good races. None of these were runaway blowout victories, which is what you oftentimes get with a world record. This was at least two individuals combining together to fight through to the line to push each other to it. At least in one of the races, both people went under the previous world record.
Yeah, and both the 50 or the mile and the 3K, you could say 4 people broke the world record this weekend because first and second in both races broke the previous world record. So you got it exactly right. The women's side were a little more tactical races, so we didn't see world records. They were good. It was great racing. Watching like Whitney Morgan kick home in the 3K, and it was awesome racing. But they weren't they let the Pacers go, and there were gaps formed, and they decided they weren't ready to maybe hurt for an opener like the men were willing to hurt. That could have been it. But what I took away, because I've been following some of these channels on YouTube, and that's the great thing about this day and age is like you can see some of the on athletics training sessions, and you can watch Yara Nagoose train with the crew, and then like Cole Hawker and the Cooper Tier crew, they're kind of following along every few weeks with episodes, just giving you little snippets, right? And it wasn't but 2 or 3 weeks ago that Cole Hawker was hitting one of his first sessions at like even touching mile or 3K pace. And then 3 weeks later, he took second to Grant Fisher, may I remind you, but he goes out and breaks a world record. He takes second, but he broke the previous world record. In this very beginning sharpening phase of racing season, these guys and girls' long-term play is seeing the summer through to the world champs, right? That's the goal every year. And the summer world champs. And so outdoor, I should say. And so anyways, these athletes are thinking long-term. Their coaches are thinking long-term, progressing through the year. And yet they come out and do this. It was amazing. And you got to think, okay, so how long does it really take you to get in quote sharp or race ready? What does that really look like? And how should we think about these first races, which inevitably are going to sting, hurt, and you feel unprepared for? You tell me all of those men and women towing the start lines this weekend truly felt prepared for what they were going to do and then go out and surprise themselves in a sense.
Right.
Even their coaches were surprised, saying, I thought Grant Fisher, best case, ran 326 or 726 or 727, and he ran 722. So we should chat that out today.
We should. I think we should get one caveat out of the way, which is all the naysayers online are pointing to three things. One, that track got resurfaced. And it's modern technology, high-tech track, high energy return, which is good for probably tenths per lap, you would think. Sure. Then you have the next generation of super spikes are all out and on the athlete's shoes or on their feet. And that's good for, depending on the race, tenths per race. And then sodium bicarb is all the rage right now. And that is basically a lactate buffering agent, which allows people to not tie up the same way in middle distance races, in theory. And that's now being used by everyone. So you have these three things combining.
Can I pause you?
Yeah.
Can you explain? So I've only seen just snippets about it. Can you explain the sodium bicarbonate situation?
I will do it in the most watered down pseudoscientific manner possible.
That's how I prefer it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which is, if you think about that feeling of my hamstrings are starting to lock up because I've worked too anaerobically for too long. People identify that with lactate acid or lactic acid or lactate buildup. If that was genuinely the cause of that, which we're not going to get into why that's a bit of a fallacy. If you put sodium bicarbonate into your system, it basically blocks that pathway from occurring for up to X amount of minutes. Now, my understanding in college was you had like 60 to 90 seconds it could buffer that for. It basically chemically buffers lactate for X amount of time until that chemical process runs out, and then your body resumes. But the way it's been, and it used to be that people would just take, sodium bicarbonate powder and just like dump it in. You would just have.
But people are taking a quick hit of this right before the race, half an hour before. Not like a daily supplement.
Correct. Now people will take it now for big workouts, but this has now been tuned a little bit to not be so temperamental. I mean, people used to just take baking soda, dump it into water, a half a cup to a cup of baking soda into, 2 cups of water and chug it down and then race. And the timing had to be, the timing was temperamental and the reaction was temperamental. And then the reaction afterwards was explosive. Like you had then 5 minutes to get to the bathroom and you were going to be there for the next 30 minutes. I had a teammate do this in college, and he qualified for nationals in the 400 in the very first race of the year indoor, and then spent the next 30 minutes losing his soul in the bathroom stall. What science has done now is tuned it a little bit, made it less temperamental, made it more stable, and it seems to be longer lasting in its duration, in its effectiveness. Like David Roche took it the other day before like 5 by mile or something he was doing. So anyway, it's basically in poor man's terms, it's the ability to not tie up during a workout or a race. You can work anaerobic for longer with your stride not shortening up because you're overcome with lactate.
Is this something that should be on the awareness of the banned list?
It's something that they're absolutely studying right now.
Huh.
And it was not legal when I was in college.
Yeah, I've just only seen snippets of it, but I haven't really looked into it. So you think most athletes on the start line are doing that or taking a version
so
of
it
that?
is currently now what super shoes were when they first came out, where the first Rio Olympics, only a few people had it, and that was the podium. That's how world champs were, and then the Olympic finals in the last cycle. And now everyone's like, we get it. We've experimented with it last year and in the off season, and now everyone who cares about, like, you have to take it to compete.
And you probably won't feel the difference until you need to at the very last stretches of your race, right? It probably doesn't feel like much until you realize, just like creatine helps you get that extra rep in. You're like, I don't think I have one more rep. And then you hit it and you're like, there it was. How was it there? Probably similar with the finish to a mid-distance race, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I think you see it most in the 1500 mile and the 800 meters. If you look back at all the Diamond Leagues last year, what you saw, especially in the 800, is a pack of people kicking in, sprinting in all the way through to the line. And it was whoever had the best kick won. Usually the 800 is about who times it right. And it wasn't that as much. People weren't tying up like they used to. I don't know if you can think back and remember that, but we had a ton of people run really, really fast in the 800 last year.
Yeah,
and they would all do it
across the board.
Yeah, and they would all do it in every race.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you basically don't tie up as easily, which in a mid-distance race is everything. So it's the difference between getting to 200 meters to go and having something left and not having something left, which is part of the reason Jakob was human last year, is because one of his strengths is being able to strength run all the way through to the end. And he runs the kick out of people and they start to tie up. Well, people didn't tie up last year, and they all had a kick left with 100 meters to go.
And you're pointing the finger at this almost like
100%. Now, training and everything has combined to help that as well, but people don't race anymore like they're afraid of tying up, because they're not.
So this has not been on my radar to like put any real thought into it. Now you're going to send me down a stupid internet rabbit hole after this. Thank you for that. Let's move on for the sake of brevity.
That was supposed to be an aside.
Well, yeah, but I caught my interest, and so I wanted to ask. So basically what you're saying is,
okay, go ahead.
No, but basically you're caveating the fact that all these world records were set.
Yeah, and I think it's a reason why so many great finishes happened at early season races, is because the downside of early season trying to run fast when you haven't been hitting that race pace is you guess a little bit wrong and you tie up at the end. And you saw some people fade off the pace, but anyone who made it to the end was kicking, which is rare indoor.
So now you're going to discredit everything we talk about for how to get ready for early season races.
No.
A little.
It's just the difference between running really well and running a world record.
Saw Caitlin Toohey fall off the back end hard in one of those races. Kind of rooting for her to come back. Maybe she needs to get on that baking soda train.
Again, it's only helping you the last 200.
Right. I'll tell you what, though, if comparison is the thief of joy, my joy has been thieved. My God. I was watching this. I rewatched the races last night, and then we're going to teach you guys something here. I rewatched the races last night with Jess in bed. I'm like, did you see this stuff? She had traveled this weekend to Florida to visit a friend. And so normally I'd force this upon her, but it wasn't. So we got caught up. I rewatched the races, and I was trying to put it into like layman's terms, like how fast these people are actually running. And I was like, okay, so in the 3K, what you're going to do is you're going to set the treadmill to roughly 15.2 miles per hour. You're going to hang on for dear life. And she's like, 15.2 miles an hour. I'm like, yeah, 15.2 miles an hour. And for the mile, let's crank that up a few more tenths and let's go 15.4. She's like, can't comprehend, like, okay, if you start thinking about treadmill speeds and like what it takes to hold, like, you folks know what it's like to hold 10 miles an hour. Well, time and a half, it's unbelievable. Anyways,
Yeah.
fast. So I was in bed last night just kind of feeling like a pile about my run fitness, but it only lasted a brief amount of time.
Yeah.
So let's break it down. Let's
Where do
break
you
it
want to
down.
start?
I want to start with going back to college, actually, and how I would run some of my best times and races of the year only a few weeks into season.
Mm-hmm.
And in retrospect, why? Where would you like to start?
Well, let's start there. I'm going to make a statement.
We'll do it.
One of the most common fallacies that I run into with athletes when I do consults or coaching calls is the idea that I need to spend more time at race pace because I'm not fast enough to run race pace. I think it's one of those times where you realize, okay, you are someone who hasn't built up a huge like backlog of running, because that's the early to running misconception, which is that if I can't keep race pace, I need to spend more time at race pace in order to make myself run race pace. And that's not what it means. What that means is, and this will be hurtful to some, that's not your race pace. We come up with an idea of what our race pace is. And then we decide what pace we need to work at to hold that. And that's the wrong way of approaching it. And if you look at the pros and you look at what we did in college, you, in quotes, strength run all off season, which is slower than race pace, bigger volume, longer interval reps, running, they call it threshold training, a lot of tempo running. And then you let the first race of the season dictate what's going to be race pace the rest of the indoor season. And so the big difference between how we think about racing and how pros do and how the average Joe thinks about it is the average Joe knows exactly what they're going to target for a pace without having any indication in training whether that's realistic or not. They choose a number based off what they think is respectable rather than based off what their training metrics and their historical data tell them they can do.
Yeah, I think the historical data is somewhat valid, though. Like, hey, I PR'd 18:30 in the 5K last year, and so I'm in the waters. Like, I think that is a good starting point for a lot of athletes. I think a lot of people use previous bests or results to indicate their current fitness. But so the point you wanted to get across was basically like, we are, I don't know, self-prescribing a race pace that may be a fallacy. And so we're
And as a
reaching for a
result,
pace.
we're trying to force more speed to get ready for the race pace rather than just saying, I'm going to come in with the biggest engine possible. And because I've spent so much time doing that, I can just feel out effort levels in a race. And what happens. I'm going to get into a race.
I agree with that completely. And I think that sort of backs up the point I was about to get into, which was what happens in collegiate cross country and track, indoor track specifically, is actually what I'm referring to. And then the cross country season is we get sent home from school for our winter break, which can be a long time. I always took an interim class, so we had to go back early because we had to practice. You probably did the same thing, like a 3 week
in order to
condensed
graduate. Okay, I was behind on credits.
Okay, well, that as well. Anyways, so basically you get sent home and coach didn't give us a ton of structure. Like, here's the mileage range, go run. I mean, that's where we were really at. In the off season, we didn't get a single workout over the summer. It was, I'd like to see a build up to this mileage, come into cross country season, ready to go on a volume standpoint. I didn't get one prescribed workout. I don't know if you guys did, being shorter distance in track, but we didn't. Anyways, so basically you go home, you work your like crappy summer job and you just run mileage, which is what I did. And then you come back into season, and maybe I snuck a workout or two in there the last week or two just to see if I could get myself. I'd do some like mile repeats or something. And you would show up, and maybe we were young and we were responders. Don't get me wrong. It's you and I think, are both responders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, like, I think we adapt stimulus to stimulus pretty well. And my PR in the 8K came from my first race my freshman year until I was a junior. And then my openers were always solid. I would run my national qualifying time in indoor track, my second race of the year, third race of the year, only 3 weeks back to structured interval training. And then I would about hold status quo until we hit nationals and tapered. And this is the main thing I'm trying to get across here, is if you have been making consistent bank deposits in the off season, I don't even care what they look like, just putting your running shoes on and running, you are way closer to peak performance than you think with the few pointy workouts, with a few VO2 max type sessions, with a few, let's call them hero workouts or over race pace sessions. You can go from feeling flat and I've just been putting in volume but slow to 3 weeks later being ready to potentially run a lifetime PR if it is done correctly. And it doesn't take months and months of, let's call, sharpening to get you race ready. In fact, 3 weeks is what I think. If you have the appropriate bank deposits, you can be relatively close anyways. Yeah. And that's what I saw outlined with the pros. We only know a little bit, right? We don't know everything that they're doing, but I did see some of the workouts and I made my own judgment. Like, yeah, that's not, you ran at like 5K, 10K pace and then went outside and did 6 by 30 second hill sprints at the end. So maybe that counts, but anyways, you get what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Yeah. In the way my college seasons all went, and they got.
You hear that music?
No.
I need to do something here. I got 2 computers up, and my Pandora started playing on my other computer right now.
What's it playing?
It's playing Hosier. Hosier's playing. All right, continue. Sorry.
Is that how it's pronounced?
Hosier. I think it's Hosier. Yeah. Go.
My off seasons were similar in summer, unscripted mileage goals, and then they'd script our winter as middle distance runners. They wanted our strides intact. So, but we would train like 5K, 10K guys during the winter. In terms of, we were doing intervals twice a week all winter long, but it was 5K, 10K stuff. And we were doing, maybe not twice a week, maybe once a week. And the other one, we would sometimes do a longer interval, or we'd do like, one of our commons was 2 mile. It was a 4 mile like cut down, 2 miles steady, 2 miles as fast as you can go, or 4 miles steady, 4 miles as fast as you can go. Just like cut it down, bring it home as fast as you can go without kicking it in. Like staying power, strength running workouts. But I would come in and I would get faster every single race until I reached the best I could do. And then I would hold right about there, and then I would fade out. And I never had like a good sharpen or whatever. I think I was over raced, probably worked too hard in training, but I would just get faster every single race, but not much faster. Like my senior year, I came out and ran 420, 421 in an indoor full mile as my opener. And at conference indoor that year, I ran 418.
Mm-hmm.
And then outdoor, I ran 357 in the 1500. So convert that to what? 415-ish for a mile. So I went from 421 to 415 that year. 420 to 415, call it. I got faster each time, but not that much faster. I came out and opened up within 5 seconds in the mile. So 1 second per lap, essentially, of what I was going to max out at 2 months later. All the race pace work, all the intensity, all the sharpening gave me start to finish 1 second per lap, which is a lot, but it's not that much for coming off base training and going to like very high intensity, what you would consider race pace and faster work. In the 800, I came out that year and I think I ran 155, like 155.1 my first indoor race, and I finished at 153.2.
Mm-hmm.
So I cut time, but less than 2 seconds in 2 months, coming from 5K, 10K training down to 400, 800 meter training by the end of the year. I would just sequentially cut tenths. But to your point, I would come out pretty darn close to
Mm-hmm.
what I could do. It just took a little bit of sharpening to get down to the final piece of that. And that's what racing is. Racing is done primarily off the size of your engine.
Mm-hmm.
Even as a miler, mostly my lactate threshold training was determining what I could run in the mile, as long as my stride could handle mile pace. And we handled that by running 200s after every workout, 4x2, 6x2 after our 4 mile cut down run. That was the only speed work we did. Came out and ran like 50.9 my first indoor 400 that year and finished with 50.02 by the end of the year. It wasn't really that much different. So we think about racing as come in with the engine you need, add the skill and the sharpness as we go. And a lot of the everyday runners think about how many weeks have I spent working on the pace I'm about to run.
Yeah, and you walked me into really the point I wanted to make with the season lead in, and then how well I felt like I raced pretty early in the year after coming to racing and specific work, we'll call it, is that even now, even if your first race is 4, 6, 8 weeks away, what do you say? 80% of, let's call, quality sessions should still probably be slower than intended race pace.
Yes.
For the most part. What we're looking to do as we lead into these races is, by running slower than race pace or goal race pace or projected race pace, is it allows us to put more, keyword here, volume into our training sessions. Instead of running, for an example, I'll just use a basic workout, 12 by 400 at goal 5K pace or under. We can double that and run 24 by 400 at half marathon pace or 10K pace even. And we're putting more deposits in for later, right? And so by slowing down and trying to draw that out as long as you can, bigger drawn out workouts at a slightly slower pace than you hope to or intend to race is going to put more money in your bank for later in racing season. So we don't want to let go of that. That's still what's going to get us there, right?
Yep.
And we preach finishers on this podcast, and I think finishers are a great place. You alluded to 200s to finish a session. Sure, you can tack those on, but I am telling you, like, physiological adaptation, like, let's say you have your first 5K or half, and it gets blurry, right? I want to caveat with, like, if we start looking at the half and then the full, I'm a big believer, like, a lot of your work is going to be over speed training in a marathon,
Yep.
right? So we're more speaking to what, like, under half marathon here, would you say?
For this one, yeah.
For the sake of this one. Anyways, very little stimulus at or faster, and waiting until even a month out before you're like, okay, it's time to test the legs and try to run at my goal 5K pace or faster for this session, isn't too late. In fact, if you have a long drawn out season, you could even argue it could be too early. Like, how often do we really need to touch race pace in training for extended duration? I think is much less than people think.
Yeah. And if you look at the pro groups, they are a masters. They have their masters in minimum effective dose of race pace or faster earlier in the year. They all do it differently, but they all have some version of finishing with a different pace than they had started with, or throwing it in the middle. Like, if you looked at, Jack just posted this in our group chat, but Yard Nagoose, who set the world indoor mile record, his did you see his final tune-up workout?
Maybe.
It was like,
I did see it. Yes.
2K tempo,
then 2K, like all out,
and 2K fast,
whatever that means.
Yeah, and then more 2x1000 tempo or something, and then 4x200 fast. That was it.
And for perspective, I remember the splits now. It was like, for him, he did a 2K tempo at 6 flat. He ran,
Yes.
and then he goes and does a 2K fast again, sub 5 minutes, which means he ran under a 4 minute mile en route to his 2K. So Whatever fast means. Yes. Continue.
Yeah. And so but the point was more than half of his workout, 2/3 of his workout was a threshold workout. It's his tune-up final workout before the race. It was like 10 days out or something. And then he had 4x200 and one 2K in there where he ran close to race pace or a little faster in the 200s.
Can we talk about the beauty of that session, as stupid as it looks on paper? Because I looked at it, I was like, that's a dumb session. And then I looked at it again and I was like, no, it's exactly what we believe in. You put a little, you dose it, you put a little duress in the legs by having him run a tempo, which for him is still relaxed, but work starts to buffer some lactate. Just put a little fatigue in him.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to run fast, Yared. Now we're going to dial back, put a little more fatigue at, in quotes, tempo effort. Really, he's probably threshold running, right? Ish.
I mean, that was 15-minute 5K pace, and he's probably a 12:45 5K guy, 12:50.
Right.
So he's running more than 2 minutes slower than his 5K pace.
Right. So yeah, put your legs under duress, force them to turn over and get some real work done. Let's put them under duress again, something manageable, but will still amount a little bit of fatigue, then make you spin and turn over again. What is that? That's freaking racing. And it's kicking home. Yep. It's the reason I like some of these traditional ladders I prescribe so much, because it's like, hey, let's run 2 mile, 1 mile, 8s and 4s. Let's put some duress in the legs, and then let's force you to turn over at the end. It's a very simple way, which a lot of people have seen ladder workouts, and I prescribe them. It's a little cuter what Yara did, but exactly to your point. I would argue maybe even more than 2/3 was spent in slower than race pace running.
Yeah, well, he did, if I can remember correctly, 4K at threshold and 2K at race pace and 800 meters faster than race pace. So, yeah.
There you have it.
There you go. And that's like that 2K fast is a nasty interval. But then it's done.
Horrible.
It's not what you would think about with a classic, like this is the last big workout. They didn't do a last big workout. They did a last taste a race feeling workout. And then they moved on. And that's what pro camps do, is they sometime in the last 3 weeks, they do almost a time trial at like half to 2/3 distance. For the milers, they'll go run through 1,000 meters at race pace. And then they'll finish off with doing the rest of their easy work, or they'll start doing 200s faster than race pace at the end of workouts, but they're not doing full mile workouts. And this is someone who is preparing to assault the world record, but he didn't go all in on it. He said, I can strength run this pace. It's not that different from my 3K pace. It's just one notch different. So I just need the skill, and I need to feel it once or twice. You need to knock the rust off, but they do that with a few of those 1,000 meter, 2,000 meter reps. He didn't go out and race even, really. He's not racing. He's not doing monster workouts.
He reached.
Feel it.
But he did reach. He had to reach a little for that 2K.
Yeah.
Like he reached. That was not a fun interval. That felt like almost a race.
Yeah. And if you look at that in perspective, you fill the space. I'm going to pull up exactly what a 4:59 2K is.
What do you mean? What
exactly is? The pace.
Well, it's exactly 4 minute pace.
4 minute. It's like 4:59. I wanted to get the
3:59, like 3:59 point.
Yeah. So they came through at 3:57 in the 3K. So,
Yard ran the mile, but nonetheless.
Right. So I'm saying that was 3K pace. That was slightly slower than 3K pace for the world record, which was run by two guys that he competes against and was finished a 10th behind at the Olympics with Cole Hocker.
Right.
So he ran essentially 3K pace for 2 kilometers in training to prepare for the mile. And then he finished with 4x200 faster than mile pace. 26, 27. It's right around in there. 2K at 3K pace is nasty. That hurts. You have to dig solo or with training partners in practice, but that is not a monster mile sharpening session either. And it's not going to leave you destroyed.
Yeah. It makes me actually think about my own 5K potential pursuits a little bit. And by the way, I decided, like, with these winter conditions, I I don't think it's smart for me to go try to emotionally run a fast 5K until we get some clear air here, you know? So I think I'm going
Unless
to
you
wait.
have an indoor track that you're going to start doing workouts on.
Correct. And I don't. I mean, I could go way, way, way out of my way. It'd be a huge inconvenience. I don't think I'm there. I think I'm just going to wait. Point
Okay.
being, but it makes me think of my own, you know how this winter's been. It's frustration after frustration trying to run outside. Anyways, makes me think of my own 5K pursuit, saying like, you know, what I might be missing is going out and running a 3K time trial at 5K goal pace, or what I think. And actually, you know, you use the word rust buster, and it's a little cliche, but gosh, it's true. Like your rust buster can happen in training. That's
Yep.
sort of what Yara just did.
100%.
Right. And so I think, what if I did try to run 3 or 3.5K, even if I have to race to do it at race pace? What would that do to my actual 5K, my opener 2 weeks later?
Yeah.
Probably a lot. And so it's interesting you brought up that workout, because I was going to bring the conversation to, if you have an early season race that you care about, I would argue half marathon and less. You could even argue up to the marathon. And by the way, you can project this out to trail racing general time domains, right? We're talking very specific metrics here, but this bleeds into everything. It is the, you know what? Keep your training foundation solid, and 2 weeks before, or 2 or 3 weeks before your first race that you really care about, go jump in the charity 5K run for the kids and go race your face off and steal a podium from the locals and get the rust busted. It's a really good jump start to just propelling you. You just talked about racing yourself every race, progressing just slightly in the 8, and that's a needle threading event. So it's a little different, but nonetheless, the rust buster technique, like, hey, this is my ceremonious, I'm getting ready to race again, even if you've done no racing or training at pace or faster. The old jump into a race and let that be a jump start is a fantastic way to do it. But you could sim it in training. That's such a good point.
Yeah. So let's look at who's listening to us. You either have people getting ready for a St. Patrick's Day 5K or 4-miler or 5-miler. You have people getting ready for Spartan Race Jacksonville or Charlotte, or you have people that maybe don't have a spring race. So let's talk to the first two. If you're getting ready for Spartan Race Jacksonville or Charlotte, you can spend all winter and early spring here running really nasty intervals, or you can stay in your staying power threshold intervals, OCR tempos, and you can get something like 2 weeks out, run 1,000, 10 burpees, 1,000, 10 burpees, 1,000, 4 time, and you're done. And just all out. You are running that as fast as you possibly can. That's going to be worse than anything you can feel in Jacksonville. It's going to be faster than you're going to have to go in Jacksonville, and you can get right back to training, because the damage of a 5K comes in the last mile. The damage of a mile comes in the last 400 to 600 meters. The real bad part starts as you accelerate and empty the tank. It's the emptying of it that sets you back for so long. The physical demands don't stay with you long from a mile. It's that final exertion which empties all your reserves that really trashes you. And from a cellular level sets you back. So getting 3K of the 5K, that's short recovery time. That's the kind of thing you can implement to copy what a pro is doing. And you start doing some fast finishers or some heavy carries hard, but you don't need to do weeks of VO2 max or faster work. You need to do it a few times, because at the end of the day, no one's running faster than 20 minutes in Jacksonville this year, which means it's still a strength running event.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think strength running starts, time-wise?
I think I would lower my answer to that every single year. I think strength running now starts at the mile.
I was going to say 5 minutes or more.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Even in college, like I'm someone who uses a different stride between different paces. I'd run the first 2.5 laps of a mile using my slow stride. It was closer to my 5K stride than it was my 800-meter stride. And then during that third lap, you start to really dig and get to work, but you really don't even open up until the 300 meters to go, maybe. Like, that's mostly strength running. That's mostly, what's my threshold doing for me here? Am I sipping the pace, or am I gulping the pace?
I
I
saw
think
that
it
last.
starts around 4 minutes.
Might start around 4 minutes. I was just going to say, for the sake of like our general listeners who probably run a mile all out somewhere between 5 and 8 minutes. So it starts probably about there. That's strength based running.
Well, what's VO2 max? 6 to 7 minutes. That's what scientists say. Who has the
Sure.
highest VO2 maxes in the world? 60 to 90 minute racers.
Sure.
Like even VO2 max is a strength event. It's not a sprint event.
I saw that lap 4 stride out of you when we got together for our little training weekend last year when you attempted to break 60 seconds on our last quarter mile repeat.
That was a whole lot of things I don't ever need to be. A tying up, flailing lap 4 stride.
Every muscle, because I saw your back, because I was trying to run at pace. You decided to blow the doors off of it. Every muscle in your body was sticking out. You reputed your fingernails to run that one. I think you ran 60 point.
Yeah.
But that was after a lot of work. We had already done a lot of work up to that point. But anyways, I saw that. That was a different stride than I had seen all day.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, it was.
So what's the main point we want to get across here, right? The main point. Oh, go ahead.
No. Take your main point.
The main thing, if you take away anything from this conversation, is don't feel like you're behind. Rely on like a lot of you in the Great White North. Like it's been non-sexy slogs. My pacing has been behind notably on sessions, either due to footing, wind, or 3 layers of clothes, right? And you can start to feel behind. I'm not ready to race. And I feel that way. And I think a lot of people listening feel that way. And we are telling the truth to ourselves slightly because metrics tell us maybe we're not where we want to be. But we are so close to being there, way closer than you think you are. And we often feel the need this time of year to accelerate the process and start running workouts to make ourselves feel better. I'm going to go run 400 meters with 2 minutes rest. I'm going to do it on the treadmill and I'm going to do it super fast. I'm going to feel much better about myself because that's what I need right now to run well in 8 weeks. And I'm so sick of this slogging. That's the process I'm trying to stop you from doing right now and say, no, let's be patient. It's a long year and I still can race very well if I start turning the dial and wait closer to race day to do that. Either kick it off with a rust buster race, start to implement adder faster than race pace stuff, but push it back a little ways. We don't need to do it now all the time. I mean, you can touch it, right? Of course we can touch it, but I'm saying the focus of your training. You don't race until May or April and you're looking at it's 2 months away. Slow yourself down a little bit. Just try to practice patience. That's the main thing I want to get across. And let the pros, yes, they live very different lives than we do, but let the pros lead by example in the fact that they weren't getting too cute until very recently. And you could argue they're not even getting too cute yet.
Yeah.
And what did the majority of them do is just as you spoke about, it's a lot of like, I'm going to threshold run and slower than race pace, and I'm going to touch with finishers or hill sprints. And if you want to start implementing that sort of thing to feel better, just to turn over and microdosing, yes, but just like slow your process down is what I'm getting at. Don't corner yourself too early this year.
Well, and that's the big thing. The moment you start to harvest your crop, by nature, the crop has stopped growing. It can't grow any taller the moment you cut it down.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you need to go into the field and grab a few pieces, that's fine, but let the rest of it grow. That's what we're talking about right now. You don't want to throw it all out because you're nervous about the next meal. If you are looking at your race and saying, it's coming up and I can't run that pace, you have to just make the statement that that's not my pace then right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And I think that leads to the final point, which is early season racing. There's always the conversation, do I go out and run conservatively or do I go out and see what happens? I think the answer is you go out and you run what you know you can run right up until the point where you prove yourself right or wrong. And if you feel better than you expected to, you can always lean into it from that point on and run fantastically fast. But if you lean into it too early from the start, you are going to blow up and you're going to not have any good intel coming out of the race, and you're going to feel depressed. You can always pick up the pace in a race, always. And that's what early season races are for. And that's also why you do a time trial or a 2/3 effort session, not effort, 100% effort for 2/3 the duration, and find out, is this realistic? That gives you a good starting point for going out in the race so that you're not 5 minutes in looking down and being like, the rest of this is going to be useless because this is now a mess. You just want to be able to hold or build in the second half of your first race of the year. And all the pros who were successful went out at something they could maintain. And the ones who fell off the pace, they overextended. You want a pleasant surprise in the second half. Like, I'm still here. I'm going to push harder. You don't want to find out I didn't know what my race pace was and I was too optimistic.
That crop analogy is gold.
Thank you.
That was one of my favorites you've ever done. Maybe
it's too early in the year to cut it down.
Yeah.
It really is.
Don't harvest your corn in July. Wait until September or October. I wanted to touch on just one thing.
Okay.
With this, talking about, like, I just told everybody to pump the brakes, right? Like, just trust that it'll be there when it needs to be. At the same time, what I'm outlining, and I think you agree with this, is it is okay to, in quotes, ego run or run fast with purpose in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
And I prescribe it. A lot of times I like to throw something in every 3 or 4 weeks for an athlete just to make sure we don't lose touch with it, right? But what we're outlining is, you can go rip and you can run faster than race pace or at race pace in the off season. Of course, I want you to, actually. But the bulk, let's say Yared's workout, for example, 80% of that is done slower than or with the threshold or longer grindy focus. So yes, it is okay to do if you want to do it once in a while, but that's only like the side course to your main dish right now, which would be the foundation of your running, right? So yes, it is. I don't want to tell people, like, no, don't go run something of importance at or faster than race pace, because I do think it's important to do that on occasion.
Yep.
It's just not leading your training decisions right now. That's all. That's all I'm trying to say.
If you had to label its column, you would put the word skill on top of it. You think of it as skill work, and skill work can't become miserable and exhausting. Otherwise, you're not practicing good skill anymore. You save those sessions for later.
What would be an example of that? Elaborate on that.
Well, it's something that I'm working on because I feel that my skill of running has eroded in the last few years between injury and a lot of slow miles on technical trails. And so the one I started with was 6 by 150 at mile-ish pace. And now it's 8 by 150. That is not a tiring workout. I'm stopping before the first sign of I'm starting to fade. I'm running fast. It's great skill work, but I'm not working on endurance. I'm not working at how much time can I stay at this stride for. I'm working on, can I run really good, clean reps at mile pace right now? And I'm kind of building into each rep. I'm not blasting off the line. I'm just trying to build up to mile pace or effort and hold it and stop before it gets bad. I'm not running 200s. I'm running 150s. It's just more manageable for me. It's not going to leave me beat up. That would be an example of that. Running 4 to 5 by 200 at the end of a workout. That's good skill work. You're not going to change your engine by doing that, but you might unlock the ability to run a little smoother at race pace by getting smoother at doing that.
Yeah, I very much agree. I feel like 150 is a very unsatisfying distance for me to run.
The other thing is that the length of the city block that I live on is 150 meters.
Conveniently, yeah.
So
it was fun to finish sessions in like high school and college where you'd come off the curve and like kind of ramp up along the curve and then kick home on the straightaway to run 150s. I guess that was all right. But geez, I had a point to make. Oh, it's more proposing a question. We talk about finishers a bit as staying in touch. I waffle over this question, and I think there's an argument for it, as in starters being like, I'm going to run through my whole, it's a quality day, and I'm going to run through my whole warm up, and I'm going to open with the 150s, and then I'm going to go hit my 6 mile threshold run, or I'm going to go hit my float workout, but I'm going to allow myself to run clean and fast, not under duress, versus pushing it towards the end as like a afterthought, because
Yeah.
I think you could argue either. And I always do, personally, I do the finisher very often. Once in a while, I'll do broken tempos where it might be like you open with quarters, then run a tempo, then finish with quarters. So there's a little bit of both. As you know, we've done that style before.
Yep.
But have you ever experimented with the like this time of year, the starters, not the finishers? Because I have not personally.
I don't as much. If I do, it's like running a full 1,000 at 3K pace or something. It's like getting a buy-in rep. I don't do the finisher as a starter much, but I don't have a good reason for why.
It sort of feels like having your dessert first, which
Yeah.
I don't know.
I spend every rep thinking about the workout to come, and I don't like that feeling.
Yeah, I'm just like, why is there a good argument for not letting yourself run fast and clean, not taking a ton of damage or doing it under a ton of damage, and then getting to the?
It might be better.
Is it an appetizer, not a dessert? Like, is it actually a better? I don't know. It's just something I was just thinking about as we're talking. We keep saying finisher, finisher, finisher. And I'm like, it would sure be nice to go run fast and clean without being a bit thrashed from the workout prior as well.
Yeah.
I know how 400-meter reps feel after going out and running a tempo. And what do they feel like? The first one or two feel clunky AF.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. I don't know. I'm going to have to think on that.
From
Maybe
pure
I'll
skill work, it might be better if you could
Yeah.
turn your brain off.
Yeah.
I have one last thing to talk about, and it'll be brief.
Okay.
In watching these pros, it's very obvious those whose form changes throughout the race and those whose doesn't. And when we go to race early season, we go off the line, and by nature, most amateur runners run an unsustainable stride when they start a race off. They're around people for the first time in a while. They have adrenaline for the first time in a while. The race doesn't feel bad, and you run this peppy, bouncy, prancing 4-foot stride that you have not used at all in training. And even if the pace you're running is fine and the heart rate you're running is fine, the actual act of running is not sustainable for you. And the pros do a fantastic job of clicking right into their sustainable race stride. And if anything, they improve it as they go along. The people who are really peppy and overly prancing and bouncing early on face a reduction in stride as their race goes on. And that is almost impossible to combat. But the people who would ramp into their stride, who start with their, I can run this stride peppy or I can run it relaxed, those are the people that have something later on as well. So it's a really good reminder that when I think about racing early season, I think about calm your stride early on, because it's way too easy to use something that you can't continue. And then afterwards you hear, I went out at a pace I can keep in training. Yeah, you can run 5-minute pace, heel striking, toe striking, or bounding for 100 meters. But which one's going to set you up to keep running 5-minute pace after that? Certainly not bounding. And we do a version of bounding at the beginning of our first race of the year because we're so amped up.
Yeah, and I would say most who finished in the front end of all these fields this weekend, I mean, they looked almost the same stride one as they did kicking home. Grant Fisher is the most shining example of that.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yared was the same. I would also say
Cole Hocker almost heel strikes early on.
Yeah, I mean, Cole Hocker didn't even reach for a new stride until like the back stretch of the final lap. Even he's gotten a lot better about that. Hobbs Kessler looks like a mechanical brilliance running just like until he got the ugly face in the last 50 meters. Those guys are so sound. They weren't Brakken Kraker last 400 running. And if I had to do that running, I would be Brakken Kraken 400 running. So yes, that's a good point you make. Stay compact early. Oh, you got something going on over there.
Yeah, we've got the sirens going.
Now, hopefully they don't stop at your house.
But the way this is going, eventually we're all just going to be living in a home, in the nursing home.
Oh, let's not put that into the world. All right. So I think we got our general sentiment across. Don't rush the process. You can touch race pace, but don't forget what got you there, right? Keep making those less sexy bank deposits. And try to practice a little self-restraint until race day gets closer as far as choosing the sexy stuff. Let's call it that. That's all I wanted to get across today.
Beautiful.
Really
if you haven't watched them, go watch those races. They're all up now online.
NBC Sports has a bunch of, I think you can watch pretty much everything on their feed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we're going to do a version 2 of our last week 500 episodes of learning. But I get to run the show this time on the episodes I pick.
That's right. See you in a few days.
All right. See you then.